7 silent wounds of being raised by an avoidant parent. The first silent wound of being raised by an avoidant parent is the quiet belief that you are unworthy of love. When you grow up with a parent who doesn't nurture your emotions or offer affection, you begin to question your own value. You think, if my own parent can't show me love, maybe I don't deserve it. That thought takes root in childhood but follows you well into adulthood, shaping your relationships, your self-esteem, and how you receive affection. You might become someone who overachieves just to feel seen, or someone who never truly lets anyone in. Deep down, you fear that if you stop earning love, it'll vanish, because that's what happened with the person who was supposed to love you first. This invisible wound often turns confident adults into emotionally starved individuals who don't even know how to ask for what they need, let alone believe they deserve it. The second silent wound of being raised by an avoidant parent is chronic emotional loneliness, a subtle, invisible ache that follows you well into adulthood. You might have had food, shelter, school, all the basics, but what you lacked was the warmth of emotional presence. Avoidant parents are often physically there, but emotionally absent. You could be crying on the inside and they wouldn't notice. Or worse, they'd notice but dismiss it. This emotional isolation becomes your normal. You learn to cry alone, celebrate alone, hurt alone. And later in life, you may find yourself surrounded by people yet still feel profoundly lonely. That's because emotional connection wasn't modeled for you. You never learned what deep, safe closeness looks like. So now, even when people try to get close, it feels like something's missing. Like you're on an island watching everyone else build bridges. Chronic loneliness rooted in childhood doesn't always feel dramatic. Sometimes it's just the quiet knowing that no one truly sees you. And the saddest part? You might not even know how to let them in, because no one ever did it for you first. The third silent wound of being raised by an avoidant parent is a deep-rooted fear of vulnerability. When you grow up in an environment where emotional expression is dismissed or ignored, you learn that opening up leads to nothing, or worse, to rejection. Vulnerability becomes unsafe. You may have been taught implicitly that emotions are messy, weak, or shameful, so you grow a shell around your heart. You learn to stay guarded, avoid deep conversations, and use humor or logic to dodge emotional intimacy. And when someone in your adult life wants to get close, you freeze. You might sabotage the connection or disappear altogether. It's not that you don't want love, it's that you've associated vulnerability with pain. The voice in your head says, if I open up, they'll leave. Or worse, they won't care. So you wear a mask. You show confidence, strength, independence, all while hiding the trembling child inside who never got the message that it was okay to feel. This fear doesn't just hurt your relationships, it isolates you from yourself. Vulnerability is where intimacy is born, and when you're afraid of it, you stay emotionally starving no matter how full your life appears on the outside. The fourth silent wound of being raised by an avoidant parent is emotional self-neglect, the unconscious habit of invalidating your own feelings. When your emotions were consistently ignored, minimized, or met with silence, you learned that your internal world wasn't important, and over time, you internalized that message. As an adult, this wound shows up in the way you treat yourself. You dismiss your sadness by saying, "It's not that bad." You downplay your hurt with, "Other people have it worse." And you force yourself to tough it out, even when you're falling apart inside. You become the parent to yourself that your parents once were. Cold, detached, and emotionally unavailable. This self-neglect can lead to burnout, depression, and a sense of numbness. You may struggle to recognize what you even feel, let alone express it. It's a cycle that keeps you emotionally frozen. And perhaps the most tragic part? You might not even realize you're doing it, because you were never taught how to validate your emotions, how to care for your inner self, or how to offer yourself compassion. This silent wound keeps you disconnected not just from others, but from your own soul. The fifth silent wound of being raised by an avoidant parent is struggling with intimacy. Not just romantic intimacy, but deep connection in all forms. Avoidant parents teach, often unintentionally, that closeness equals discomfort. They pull away when emotions rise. They seem uneasy with affection. So as a child, you learn to equate love with distance. As an adult, intimacy might feel suffocating. You might attract partners who are emotionally unavailable because that feels familiar. Or you might be the one who pulls away, ghosting or withdrawing when things get too close. Intimacy isn't just about physical closeness. It's about being seen, known, and emotionally exposed. And if you never had a safe space to be known, you'll fear that exposure like it's danger. You might long for love, yet fear it when it arrives. You might crave connection, but keep walls so high no one can climb them. That's the paradox of this wound. You want what you're most afraid of. And until you recognize where it started, in the emotional distance between you and your parent, you'll keep reliving it in every new relationship. The sixth silent wound of being raised by an avoidant parent is the drive to overfunction, becoming hyper-independent, overly responsible, and emotionally self-contained. When you couldn't rely on your parent emotionally, you learned that no one else would show up. So you began showing up for yourself, and for everyone else too. You became the caretaker, the achiever, the strong one. But behind that strength is exhaustion. You may struggle to ask for help, to delegate, or even to rest without guilt. Because deep down, you've equated your worth with being needed, with being the one who holds it all together. You don't feel safe depending on others, because your earliest experience taught you that dependence equals disappointment. So you armor yourself with independence, but that armor gets heavy, and it keeps people at a distance. Hyper-independence feels like strength, but it often hides unhealed wounds, the ones that say, if I let someone in, they'll fail me like my parent did. Healing this wound doesn't mean becoming weak. It means learning to let others in, slowly, carefully, and with boundaries. Because true strength is the ability to stay open, not just self-sufficient. The seventh silent wound of being raised by an avoidant parent is the risk of becoming avoidant yourself, of unconsciously repeating the cycle. This is perhaps the most haunting wound. Realizing one day that you're behaving like the parent who once hurt you. You avoid hard conversations. You shut down emotionally. You don't know how to be present with someone's pain, even your own child's. It's not because you don't care. It's because you never learned how to stay emotionally present. Avoidance becomes a learned language, a defense mechanism passed down through generations. And unless you consciously break the cycle, it continues. The good news? Awareness is the first step. You can begin to unlearn what was modeled. You can become the emotionally present person your parent wasn't. That healing starts with compassion, not just for yourself, but even for your parent. They, too, may have been raised by someone who couldn't love them the way they needed. You're not doomed to repeat the cycle, but you must face the wound. And the moment you do, the moment you stop running, you begin to create a new legacy, one built on presence, softness, and connection. If any of these wounds resonated with you, know this: you are not broken. You were shaped, and what was shaped can be reshaped. Being raised by an avoidant parent leaves deep emotional fingerprints, but awareness is the beginning of healing. You're not alone in this journey, and the very fact that you're watching this, seeking to understand, means you've already started the work of becoming free. Let this be your reminder. You deserve love, softness, and emotional safety. Not just from others, but most importantly, from yourself. If you found this video helpful, please like, share, and subscribe. There's more healing ahead, and you don't have to walk that path alone.